Shoot, take, capture, frame, expose. Why is the language of photography so violent? That's what we're looking at today, so stay tuned. Well, hey everybody, thank you for checking in once again and welcome to another one. So recently then, I did a video about the Zenit Photo Sniper camera, which, excuse me, is a camera that looks like a light machine gun or some sort of rocket launcher. It really is an extraordinary thing. And the video is entitled "Don't Use This on the Street" for fairly obvious reasons. Well, now, a comment was made on that video which really interested me, and it was about the kind of language that we use in photography. It's a shame, said the comment, that photography has terms that could have such negative connotations, and those are terms like shoot, capture, frame, expose, take your photo, load a film. And I thought a little bit about this, and I thought, my goodness, this is the language of warfare, repurposed. This is the language of conflict. Every one of these words expresses a form of control over the subject, and that seems to me a very curious thing. Why should the language that we use in connection with an art form also be language that we use in connection with war or conflict or struggle or some sort of armed activity? It's a very, very curious thing. So let's have a little think about this, and let's think first of all what it is we're dealing with here. So a camera is a machine that can make an exact likeness of reality. It's not approximate, it's not somebody's interpretation. You can make an argument that, you know, it's not exactly the same as reality, that it's a metaphor, but leaving that aside, what we get out of the camera is far more literal than a sketch or a drawing would be. And I think there's a very real sense when we're photographing that we have been able to own something that we didn't previously own. We've made an image and we come home with the trophy. I do think there is something of that in it. I love to do street portraits. It's one of my favourite forms of photography, but I'm well aware that it carries risks in that some people just don't want to be photographed. The face is, well, to say it's a very personal thing is an understatement. It's what we present to the world. It's the appearance that we cultivate to present to the world, to the culture that we live in, that we exist in, that our mind and ourself is part of, this great current of meaning. It's something we possess. But now, somebody else can take it, somebody can capture it, frame it, and shoot it. Now, portraiture, of course, is something that's existed for many, many years, and there's a long history of portraiture in painting and drawing. But painting and drawing are very, very slow arts, whereas the camera is very fast. You have to sit for a painting. A painting is not something that can be taken very swiftly. It takes time. A relationship has to develop between the painter and the sitter. The sitter benefits from that relationship because the painter is more sympathetic towards them. The painter gets to know them. The painter gets to know their face, how their character moves upon their face, what the relationship is between mind and body in that individual. All of those things painting and portraiture and drawing, they all develop within that process. But the camera is very, very different. The camera is stealthy, fast and silent, and its images are often made by people we don't know, by strangers. It's a sudden, fast thing. We don't know who's doing it necessarily, and that can be alarming. I think that's one reason why that we do have this language of attack, this language of warfare used in photography. So it seems that the old idea that the first non-technical people to have seen a camera and to have experienced being photographed felt the idea that the camera takes your soul, takes away something vital, something of the vital force, something of your essence and your being. And I think that's because the camera is so literal. There is no other machine that can, or no other process that can make quite as literal an image of reality as photography does. We can argue that maybe it's a metaphor and so on, but leaving all that aside, photography is the most realistic of the visual media. Photography and moving images, that is, and I think that's part of why this fear is still so prevalent, is because of the literal nature of photographic images. It's also because the camera is so fast and so silent and so potentially secret. So there is the idea that something has been stolen. And I think the language that we use around photography and within which we do photography, I think it does convey the idea of theft by force. That might seem a little dramatic, but I do think there's something in it. There must be, because we use photographs as objects once we've taken them. They belong to us, they're our possessions, we've made them. It doesn't matter that it's somebody else's face. This is something that we can possess, we can stare at it, we can worship it, we can love it, we can hate it, we can critique it. We can, in fact, own it. And I think that is a lot of where this fear comes from. And I do think people sense all of that. I do think this is something which is at the sort of the back of the popular mind, as it were, which is why people are sometimes reluctant. Because there is a sense in which this is an act of theft. And I think the subject knows that just as well as the photographer does. Even if not consciously, I think they're aware of it somewhere. And the bigger dimension of this, I think, is loss of privacy in the digital age. Fear of being photographed. It seems to be quite a modern thing. I don't recall it 40 years ago, when one would do street photography 40 years ago. I don't think the level of reluctance quite was there. There's always been some people reluctant to be photographed, of course, but I don't think it was quite to the extent it is now. And we do have, I think perhaps what's caused it is the fact that we do have less and less control of what's out there, what's online, and that's bred a fear and a paranoia, which to one extent and another, I think has come to define our age. It is one of the defining characteristics of our age. But here's the curious thing, people still put stuff out there online all the time. Maybe they feel that they have control over it. It's understandable, but I don't know if that's quite the right way of looking at it, because nobody has any real control over anything that they put online. Anything online, copyright issues aside, is more or less public property, and perhaps that's been forgotten, as perhaps has the fact that if we walk down any street or road, certainly in the UK, we are photographed and videoed hundreds, possibly thousands of times, and there is no guarantee about who gets to see those images. So I don't think our safety there is assured. So if we have paranoia, the point being that if we have paranoia for one form of photography, we should also have it for another. But of course, that is not always clear to people, I think. All right, so all of this assumes that you don't want your photograph to be taken, but what about when you do? What about when you allow your photograph to be taken? What is that state of mind like? Or going even further, when you actually want it to be taken, when you give permission, what is it you're giving? It strokes your ego, no doubt, to be photographed, and you hope it looks good. You're offering your worldly presence, the shape of your form in the world, and you hope it's how you want it to be. Now, we all project this sense of self into the world, this I-ness, and it's an idea of our being which I think is, to a large extent, created by cultural discourses, our cultural values that we've been taught over time and that have been reinforced in our culture again and again and again. And I think one's culture is, to a greater or lesser extent, one's self. So all right, we've given permission for our image to be taken. What are we feeling? Don't we all secretly want to look wonderful? There's this curious thing with, I find actually when I'm out photographing on the street, I find just as there are people who clearly don't want to be photographed, there are people who clearly do want to be photographed as well, and I just seem to kind of pick up on that vibe, and I might be imagining it, but there's something about certain people on the street that says to me, this person wants to be photographed, not even wouldn't mind, but actually actively desires to be photographed. And personally, I've got to say, on the rare, well, very rare, well, exceedingly rare occasions that anybody has wanted to photograph me on the street, I always feel rather flattered. But I guess others don't. So that is about it from me for now. So many thanks for watching. If you've watched this far, a particular thanks to you. Many thanks to subscribers for your support. If you've enjoyed this show, you might want to chuck us a sub yourself. That would be very much appreciated. Many thanks go to patrons for your support. And without that support, it wouldn't be possible to make this show in the way that I do. So many thanks for that. If you would like to support the channel over on Patreon, you can do that for as little as $1 per month. And that too would be very much appreciated. Many thanks to everybody who has watched, tuned in, given thanks, given super thanks, or engaged with the channel in any way. And if you're not doing anything too irksome, bothersome, difficult, troubling or truculent next week at around this time, please do tune in for a spot more Zenography. Cheerio all.